Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Duce Raymond Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Ian Michaud. He is my personal trainer and a very good friend. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ian.
It was my pleasure, Duce. It's just actually it was kind of convenient. We were planning on meeting around this time anyhow, so I had the hour blocked off.
I know. Usually I get a little bit nervous because Ian is always checking in on me. We have a once-a-week call, and want to make sure my numbers look right. But today, you're in the hot seat.
Yes. Okay.
So as we get into it, Ian, just give a little bit of background on what your qualifications are and how long you've been in the fitness industry and kind of what you're up to.
Sure. So I am a certified personal trainer and sports nutritionist. I've been certified for a little over 11 years now and working professionally here in New York City and with clients abroad. Before that, I was a Division I wrestler at the University of Pennsylvania and been an athlete since I could walk. First time I lifted weights, I was 12 and fell in love with it, and I've been at it ever since.
That's awesome. And you're currently continuing your education, correct?
Yes, I am. So that never really stopped. I've always been a bit of an autodidact, but I had an interest in going back to school and getting my master's in exercise physiology. And we'll see what happens between now and the end of that, but perhaps a PhD. That was the initial impetus, was to go back to school and play through. But we'll see. I'm loving school. I'm loving the master's program. I am at Lehman College in the Bronx in New York. And I don't know if anyone on this barbecue channel is a strength and hypertrophy junkie, but I'm studying under the world-renowned researcher, Dr. Bradley Schoenfeld. And he and his lab there are, they're pumping out a lot of really great information for evidence-based practitioners in the field. And he's really just been a trailblazer and brought a lot of other good people, myself included, into academia that might not otherwise have gone back or started in the first place. So it's pretty cool, and it's an honor to get to study under him.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've heard him on a number of different podcasts, and the way he breaks things down and simplifies, and it just is very digestible. And in my profession is not hypertrophy and fitness and everything like that.
Yeah, but there's plenty of protein, and there's definitely caloric surplus, so the potential is there.
That's right. But over, in the last 7 years or so, I've listened to a ton of information, and I find it very interesting. And that's actually how we got to know each other, as I was listening to Ethan Suplee's podcast, American Glutton, and you were on there. I was like, wow, I connect with this guy. We had a lot in common. So we reached out, and here we are.
Yeah.
But Ian, I was so stoked. He just actually sent me, or not Ian, but Ethan sent me a DM a couple days ago. He said he ran into you,
yes.
And that was really cool.
So Ethan's a great guy. He started his weight loss journey a long time ago, and then he wanted to double down and see basically how jacked and shredded he could get. And then he ended up working with Jared Feather over at Renaissance Periodization, who's a fantastic trainer and coach, and I believe also a researcher. He's getting in on some research publications recently. And he works with Dr. Mike Israetel, who's fantastic. He's also been teaching over at Lehman College. Just wonderful guys, great ambassadors for the industry. And they actually got Ethan in pretty darn good shape. But Ethan trains at a gym where I and my partner Becky have been training our clients for years down in Soho, and I've chatted him up. I pretty much went up to him and fanboyed Jared and Dr. Mike to him. And that's how we started chatting. And this past week I ran into him. He comes into town, comes into New York quite frequently, has a place here. And he always comes and lifts. And I said, hey, one of my clients is Duce, and I got him off of your podcast, and we're going to be doing a talk on Friday, and here's what he's all about. And he went and immediately looked you up, and 2 days later he said, Ian, I've got to get Duce on the podcast. He talks about so much stuff that I love, and I just love barbecue. So I got to talk to this
so
guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, that made my day. I was texting my sister, who is a huge fan from back in the day with Mallrats, and I mean, it was really cool. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for the kind words there.
Yeah, and he's such a sweet guy. You guys are going to have a really good talk.
Yeah, I love listening to his show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, today we are going to talk about, as everyone's kind of gearing up for the new year, we have to get through the holidays first, but everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are going to start trying to get their health in order right after the new year, as New Year's resolutions tend to happen.
Yeah.
So I want to see some of your thoughts from your point of view on how people can give themselves the best chance for success going into the new year.
Okay. So probably, well, it really depends on where you're coming from, what your starting point is.
Right.
For some folks, it might just be committing to starting to go on daily walks because they've been incredibly sedentary and they're just trying to get moving for the first time. Or, getting to the gym for the first time and not crushing it 5 or 6 days a week, no days off, but learning how to lift weights for the first time and starting to figure out how they can successfully incorporate 1 or 2 days a week of resistance training into their schedule. And resistance training, that's moving some weights. Sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be moving weights. A starting point could just be moving you. That's calisthenics. That's sitting up out of a chair and, standing up out of a chair and sitting back down. There's a whole range of things that you can do. It's not just hitting the gym.
Why do you think, and this is, for someone that's not in this space, why is lifting weights and building muscle so important to the whole weight loss program?
So I don't know if everyone on the podcast is listening to guys like Huberman, or Peter Attia, and we have a lot of people talking about wellness, health, longevity, that kind of thing. It's not just about looking pretty anymore. It's about, I guess, not even, when we talk about longevity, not even life extension, just how are the last years, the last decades of your life going to be? Are they going to be enjoyable? Are you going to be able to do the things that you want to do?
Right.
Or are you going to be incredibly limited?
Play with the grandkids.
Right. Or even just be able to walk up a flight of stairs or get groceries or still drive your car, just, not have to be taken care of by somebody else, just have some independence, go enjoy time with your friends. So, even if not everyone is just trying to lose weight, right? A lot of people are, but just being ambulatory, if we're thinking about, I want to be able to walk when I'm 80 without a walker or a chair. This is where weightlifting and resistance training really plays a critical role. And it doesn't have to be a ton. If we're talking about just health, 2 workouts a week, maybe 3. That's what the World Health Organization recommends. And in my experience, we've gotten people looking beach ready on 3 days a week of lifting.
Wow.
Total body. I mean, that can be a lot of resistance training. You can do 2. And it doesn't have to be an hour or 2 hours in the gym each time. If you can't swing that, it could be 20 or 30 minutes, multiple days a week. Basically take small bites. But the big thing is, if you're getting started, don't knock yourself out with something that's way above your pay grade, that you can't recover from, that's extreme. Start with something manageable that you can succeed at. That's probably my biggest go-to for anyone who has a New Year's resolution. Small moves. You didn't arrive in the place you are now quickly. I don't know what the age of the audience here, but if you're 40, 50, 60, and you've never really been able to put in a good concerted effort, or if you were an athlete when you're young and you're taking a lot of time off, you're not jumping into a hardcore athletic program. That doesn't make any sense. And you're probably going to be discouraged. If you're going to crash diet to get things started for yourself, you're going to be very hungry very quickly. You're going to be eating very little food that's not sustainable, and you're probably going to be excluding most of the things that you enjoy. You're going to hate it, and you're going to give up. So I would say if you have a New Year's resolution, it would be, how can I settle into this for the long haul in a way that's manageable for me?
Yeah.
And that I can expand into as time goes on. That's probably the biggest thing.
I think that's one thing, like if I looked at my journey and when I started, if I kind of understood more and how it actually works, I would have just started slower and progressed. And I think that's one thing people dig themselves a hole with, like they're jumping into so much cardio and so much restriction that there's nowhere for them to go. They're gonna plateau, and I've dealt with all sorts of this type of stuff in my journey. And if I had to start over, I would start over slower, moderate, limited amount of cardio, limited calorie deficit, and just kind of plug away. And then you can tweak stuff as you go.
Yeah,
But
and success breeds success. If you pick something that you can win at, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself.
right.
You bite off more than you can chew, and you start not showing up to the gym as many times as you committed. You're not walking 15,000 steps a day. You're only getting 4,000 steps a day, which is still good. And anything
Mhm.
above zero is good, mind you. And most of the
Mhm.
health benefits you get from doing extra activity don't come from doing extreme levels of it. It kind of goes up and then levels off pretty quickly. And you get these tiny incremental gains at the top as you're getting more and more fit. That's not to say that being robustly fit, having a very strong heart and lungs and a strong body, isn't going to be more protective against risk factors for death and disease when you're older. But most of the benefit, like 80% of the benefit, comes from just going from zero to like a quarter of that,
Mhm.
realistically. So if you can just do that, you're way ahead of the game and you're doing yourself all kinds of favors. So I would just say don't be too hard on yourselves.
So if you were designing a program, let's say someone that's been somewhat active, kind of in and out of the gym for the last year, but now they put on 10 or 15 or even 20 pounds from the holidays, and they're getting back into it. If they wanted to put on a little bit of muscle and lose a little bit of weight, what kind of program would you suggest for them? Like,
Again,
not let's we could talk about diet separately, but just going to
yeah,
the gym part,
going to the
training.
gym, I would say, coming back, I would want you probably at least 2 days a week,
Hmm.
maximum three. Train with some sort of a squat pattern or a lunge, some sort of a hip hinge pattern. And people think about deadlifts. They could be literally just glute bridges with weights, kind of like the deadlift patterns, personally, unless you're having back issues that prevent you from doing that. Some kind of push, some kind of pull,
Hmm.
press overhead, pull down. The rep range you want to be in, probably somewhere between 10 to 15 repetitions, probably within a couple reps of failure, or if you don't want to think of it in those terms, just keep going until you can't keep perfect form on your lift.
Hmm.
And probably about, just to get started, 3 sets for each muscle group. Each time you're in the gym, start with about 6 sets a week of legs, back, chest, shoulders, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be very complicated at all. And every week, if you're feeling good, not sore, not beaten up, the next week, maybe add another repetition to each set. Or if you don't want to add another repetition, add 2.5 to 5 pounds and just hit the same reps you did last week, just with perfect form. And that's probably the other big thing. Don't go in there to try and throw around a lot of weights like a hero. Take it slow, under control. There are no badges of honor for injury. There's just time on the bench and ending up back where you started or maybe worse.
Yeah.
So safety first.
Yeah, I think that's a big point. Is injuries can set you back so far. I've been really, lucky this year that I've been continuing to go to the gym. We've had a couple issues with my elbow and shoulder and stuff like that, but I've been able to stay at the gym because mentally, as you pointed out, that's so good for me. It keeps me in a good place, and
Yeah.
um, it's it's half or more than half the battle and is a mental. A lot of people, I'm blessed because I don't have a problem getting to the gym. Like, that's
Yeah.
part of my routine. I've developed that habit and I enjoy it. That's my time. Not everybody has that. Some people really struggle with, I have to get up, get out of bed and get there, you know.
And you know what? You could always just get an adjustable bench and a selectorized set of dumbbells and some resistance bands. And if you don't
Do
have
it at
that,
home.
yeah, you can get resistance bands and just learn how to do good old fashioned push ups. Started on an angle on the couch and work your way down to the floor. You can do squats, hold some books or a book bag, or anything heavy once you can work up to it. It doesn't have to be a gym. Not everyone has access to a gym or time, but you can do stuff at home. I mean, gosh, in my 20s, I didn't have time to go to the gym and I was just doing P90X in my basement.
Yes.
That worked. Beachbody. Shout
Tony
out.
Horton.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tony Horton. Yep.
Me and my wife did some of those videos
Oh, yeah.
too. That's good.
And here's another one. Try to recruit friends and get some community around you, whether it's online, whether you have a coach, someone that you're accountable to for showing up. I'm not plugging my business here, just in general, people do a lot better when it's a social activity. Right. So even if you can't go to the gym, maybe there's local pickleball. Just get moving and do it with other people whose company that you enjoy and are counting on you to be there. That's a huge driver of continued success.
What are some misconceptions on cardio? I mean, a lot in my thought process, years ago was like, that's the only way you can lose weight is you have to do, an hour of cardio every day. And where do you stand on cardio?
An hour of cardio a day is a great way to get in shape. Cardiovascular conditioning. And, if that's your jam, I'm not going to tell someone they shouldn't do that. But if that's how you are trying to lose weight, I guess everyone's already heard this and there's really no dancing around it. It's just calorie balance. Calorie balance is just you have to eat less than you need to maintain your current weight. And one way to do that, very simply could be, okay, I am measuring my food every day and logging it. I know exactly how much I eat and I weigh myself every morning. And I know that if I eat this much, I stay the same weight. So in a very rudimentary way, you could just say, okay, I've been doing no cardio and I take this many steps every day and I weigh this every day and I eat this every day. So if I just increase my energy expenditure with an hour of cardio, I will lose weight. Well, guess what? You will. Right. You can, as long as you're controlling those other variables. Yeah. Now, how you look and feel as you lose that weight, that varies. If you're trying to get ready for a marathon, maybe that's the way to go. But you probably still want to do some lower body strength training, even if you are a long distance runner. There are benefits to having strong legs. But if you're trying to look young and toned and be more functional, probably adding some resistance training into the mix will be a good idea, because as you're calorie restricting, as you're doing all that cardiovascular activity, if you're not resistance training, you'll be losing probably roughly equal parts muscle to fat. So you tend to you'll get skinny. We see that sort of skinny fat look. And hey, if that's your jam, honestly, like one thing I would say is this: anything is better than nothing, period. Right? But if you're thinking you're going to have a lean, toned looking body, in general, the people you see on the running magazines that look lean and toned when they're running are either freaky genetically gifted. Most runners you see at an elite level are doing weightlifting also, along with their regular track and field work. And then other times it's just fitness models who pump iron all the time like bodybuilders and then just did a Nike ad.
Yeah.
Most people that look lean and toned are lifting weights. They're eating a significant amount of protein daily, and they're generally, when they diet, hopefully not overly dieting and trying to lose multiple pounds per week while they're doing it. It's usually a gradual glide down. Like if you were to take a look at the top physique athletes in the world, the top natural bodybuilders, their preparation, their diets coming from fairly lean already last 20 plus weeks getting ready for a competition, and they're losing like 0.5% body weight a week, just sipping the fat off so they can hold on to all the muscle that they can on the way down. So slow, steady wins the race.
Yeah. What do you think about a lot of people are talking about the GLP-1s and the appetite suppressant drugs that are on the market now? What's your general opinion on those?
I think that given the number of overweight and obese people we have in our country and worldwide, and the culture of eating that we have, that You feed into Mr. Raymond.
Yeah, it's my fault.
It's entirely you. So look at Duce for this one. He's the reason we need these drugs.
Yeah.
But no. All kidding aside, I think they're a godsend. I think that the blunt instruments that we had before, like people taking basically amphetamine derivatives
Right.
to try to lose weight, and more caustic appetite suppressants like smoking cigarettes, or like just drinking incredible amounts of caffeine to try and numb their appetite. Um, these drugs are a godsend. They're going to save tons of lives. They're generally safe and effective. I know we need longer term trials to see exactly how safe, but they're a lot safer than carrying around 200 or 300 extra pounds of fat and having a heart attack or getting cancer or just, barely being able to walk around because your knees and your ankles hurt so much. You're carrying all that extra weight. You know, not being able to be as social as you like because it's just tough to get around. I think that they're fantastic, and I think they're only going to improve.
Do you feel like there's a negative stigma about them, or because this is what people think is like, oh, they're doing it with Ozempic. They didn't put in the hard work, or they didn't do everything I did to lose the weight. Why do you think there is that opinion out there?
Well, I think that on a certain level, it's viewed as simply an issue of discipline or say intestinal fortitude. Anyone who's not able to control what they're eating is somehow weak, or some people even feel immoral, like they're gluttons. Well, then you have to take a look at about 70% of our population and say, well, I guess they're just all weak and immoral. That's not true. That's not true
Yeah.
at all. Some of these people are some of the hardest working, most wonderful people you'd ever want to know and have incredible discipline in other areas of their life. They just have a lot of cultural norms and genetics working against them. I mean, just think about it this
Is
way.
it true that certain people or different people with different genetics have different food drive?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
the urge to eat is stronger in different people.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And actually, a funny thing to think about is even though people can have faster or slower metabolisms, the main determinant as far as how much you're going to weigh really comes down to how much you eat. So you may know folks who say, oh, they just eat whatever they want and they stay skinny. One, they could be walking like 20,000 steps a day, and you only saw them eat that junk food during maybe one or two meals. You don't know what their total calorie expenditure and calorie intake is. And also, very often, they're just not that hungry. Most of the people that I know that are not tracking their food, that stay naturally skinny, they don't think much of food at all.
Right.
And when they eat, they're very quickly satisfied.
Yeah.
For me personally, for me to maintain my weight at any given time, I have to weigh and track what I eat,
Yeah.
or I just start gaining weight immediately. And it's because I'm always hungry, always.
Yeah.
I'm just always hungry. You give me 1,000-calorie meal, I want another 1,000 calories. It's almost never enough. I have to eat until I am stuffed to
Yeah.
feel full. So for me, maintaining a healthy level of body fat is something I have to commit to a process of being mindful about what I do for the rest of my life. And I find that the small annoyance of having to do that is way less annoying than me walking around at 270 or 300 pounds.
Yeah. It's
Just
crazy.
for me. Just for me.
I mean, something that I think about with the what do you call them, semi-glutide or GLP-1s, or what's your
GLP-1 agonists, and there are a few different
agonist?
flavors out there. Semaglutide, tirzepatide, a few others. They have brand names like Mounjaro. You guys might
Right.
have heard of. Yeah, and there'll be
Wegovy.
more rolling out. They're
Yeah.
working on them because they're efficacious.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that I struggle with when I think about those is that they are basically appetite suppressant. They tell you not to eat as much. But a lot of times when I am overeating, I'm not necessarily hungry. It's just because I'm stress eating, or it's part of my pattern, or I come
Yeah.
home from work and it's like part of my I like instantly want to eat when I get home from work, because it's like I'm drawn to, that's like part of my pattern, going to the pantry and grab whatever I'm grabbing that I'm not supposed to be
Yeah.
eating.
So one of the interesting things about these drugs, and I'm not advocating for everyone to take these things, okay?
Sure.
But I do think at a population level, a lot of researchers, a lot of well-intentioned nutritionists, doctors, there are armies of people trying to help out and get people not just moving, but down to a healthy, sustainable weight. We have failed. At the population level, we have failed and are continuing to fail. So if lifestyle intervention alone was going to do it, for the majority of people, it would have done so by now. We know what needs to be done. The problem is we have all these social engagements and habits that we've built up over the course of our lives in a culture that is all about eating all the time. I mean, think about any event that you go to, a football game, a bar mitzvah, a birthday party, drinks after dinner with friends, a first date, a wedding. Everything is the reason you have a job. Everything, catering, everything is based around food, right? And that's not a
Everything.
bad thing, though. I mean, it's not it's not necessarily a bad thing because everything was kind of based around food for a long time, too. I mean, you look at something on TV about the Vikings; they can't wait to have their big feast together and celebrate. So that's not new. What is new is that it's cheap, available, and really, really delicious and not very filling. And everything we do is about it. And there's lots of marketing material about it. And even this evening, I'm going to a company Christmas party. It's at a restaurant. And hell, we could have gone bowling. We could have gone played mini golf. We could have done any number of other things. There's plenty to do in New York City. And we're just going to sit down in a restaurant and people are going to eat and drink.
Right.
Which is fine, but that's just when it's always that, and that's always the situation you're in, and everything from the menu to the waitress to your friends are pushing for more. Well, guess what's going to happen? I mean, it's you go to a barber shop, eventually you're going to get a haircut.
Yeah.
You know,
That's very true.
yeah,
Mini golf is a good alternative because you got to have the club in your hand the whole time, so you
it's a
can't be
good one.
holding a Big Mac or something else in your hand.
But going back to what you said as far as stigma for people that have had success and think that it's cheating or a shortcut,
Yeah.
what I would say is this: we all have different capacities. I went to school with some really smart kids, and a lot of them excelled in mathematics and physics, and I was okay. For any grade that I did well on, I had to work exceptionally hard for a long time. And some kids would just flip through the textbook the night before and sit down and ace an exam.
Right.
Um, I had to work a lot harder to get the same or a lesser result. When it comes to weight loss and muscle building, it is very much like that. Some people just inherently have better impulse control, which is why some people become addicts and some people don't. For some people, a drink is just a drink. My mom, she'll have one glass of wine. She's like, oh my God, oh, that's
Yeah.
so much. I can't. I'm done. She gets flushed. She's finished, and it's not even that pleasurable for her.
Right.
You give me, one glass of whiskey, I want the bottle.
Right.
I don't know where that came from, but again, there it is. So we just have to work with what we got. And I guess a lot of people who don't understand, you're not inside someone else's body or their head. You don't feel their feelings. It could be when someone is very, very stressed, the only thing, as far as they know, as a coping mechanism is going to be putting a lot of food in their face to get that bad feeling to go away. For another people, it's going for a run. For some people, it's meditation. So I think one of the things is if you are even using these drugs, just putting the food down in those situations, it may be a start, but it has to be replaced by something else. Something has to fill that hole inside other than just consumption, which can be very challenging if we've never considered other alternatives.
Yeah, that's a big topic for sure. And there's a lot. I mean, I've also often thought a lot of what we talk about is more psychological than it is physical, because there is such a mind component to at least my issue with food and staying healthy. Let's talk a little bit about, a lot of people want to have everything perfect as they were get started, and kind of slows them down. But one of the things people talk about is like, oh, you have to take this supplement or that supplement, or I need the right protein shake. Is there anything magic about supplements that is actually going to help you lose fat and gain muscle? Is there anything that you say, no matter what, you have to do this?
Well, supplements, it's in the name, they're supplemental. Those
Mm-hmm.
are not the big rocks that need to get moved so that you can get what you want. I would say if you're not, here's a big supplement that everyone should be taking: more sleep. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
maximize your recovery, reduce your injury risk, improve your emotional affect, just be smarter in general, more available to life, sleep. Anything you can do to improve your sleep is going to amplify everything. I would say consistency in your exercise, consistency in your basic nutrition. Those are the biggest things. And up, like they create this base of the pyramid, and up at the tippy top, the tiny little incremental nothing at the peak
Yeah.
will be your supplements. And I would even argue that unless you're working on those other things first, I wouldn't start wasting my money on them. And plus, very few of them even work. I
Mm-hmm.
would say a good one you could take: cheap old creatine monohydrate,
Mm-hmm.
5 grams a day. If you're lifting weights regularly, take
Right.
that. That's
Yeah.
fine. It's safe. It's effective. Um, Outside of that, if you are malnourished, maybe take a multivitamin.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a good one. I know there's some people that I work with that will see this and start shouting at the screen because they think everyone should be taking a million supplements. Um, but take care of all the other big things first.
Yeah. And if
Yeah,
you're eating a generally healthy diet, you should be getting most of the micronutrients
you are. But
covered.
again, one of the things I'm talking about, when people are calorie restricting, especially if they're smaller individuals, females trying to
Mm-hmm.
lose weight who are already possibly pretty lean, and they're eating very few calories, which means they're not going to be getting many calories from carbohydrate, which means not very many fruits and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they might need to be more aware of these things. Or, well, here's one that I'll give you. If you're a vegan and you're lifting weights, take creatine.
Yeah.
You're probably deficient. That's one thing that I would say. If you vegans out there,
I don't think I have any vegans listening right now.
well, if
Just kidding.
you are a fan of Duce Raymond and you unfortunately have a black sheep in your family or a friend
Yes.
who is a vegan and you can't bring them around to the pork side, then they probably don't have very much of that in their diet. So creatine could actually be very useful for them specifically.
Um, is there any go-tos in a diet when you're first getting started? And I know, like, a lot of people, I've been down the path, and I've done, pretty much every type of diet, with keto, intermittent fasting.
The
Um,
brisk only diet.
the brisket only diet is really
Yes.
good one.
Yeah.
um, so what direction do you tend to point people with when they say, I want to, because now it's so different. People say it's got to be carnivore, it's got to be vegan or vegetarian, it's got to be low carb, it's got to be high carb. It's like there's so much noise out there. What's something to kind of get people to understand and point them in the right direction?
So first things first, you want to try and figure out what is something that is sustainable for you for the rest of your life. If you just happen to love keto, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you it's going to get you your best performance in the gym because it won't. Um, but if that is something that you can just do forever and you love, fine, great.
Mm-hmm.
It's about energy balance over the long term. So we could say the healthiest diet in the world becomes unhealthy if you're overeating all the time,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Right.
You know, I could take someone who's morbidly obese and feed them the right amount of Twinkies and protein shakes and take a couple 100 pounds off them, it'd probably be more difficult if they were eating more than if they were eating more filling foods. But their health
Hmm.
markers are going to go through the roof.
Right. And all they're eating is Twinkies and cookies
Just
or
just
whatever.
because they're
Yeah.
getting their body mass down and they're
Right.
moving more, right? Now, over the long haul, it's probably not a great idea. And if you're diabetic, ignore that. Don't do that. No, no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know
I'm
you're
not.
not
I'm not.
suggesting it. You're
I'm not
just
suggesting
making a
that. But
point.
some easy
Yeah.
things that you can do if you drink a lot of your calories, if you're putting a lot of cream and sugar in your coffee, if you're drinking a lot of juice, milk, and even protein shakes, I would say, unless you're having difficulty getting in enough protein, getting the liquid calories out and eating solid food for those calories is going to help you stay more full. Switching to leaner portions of protein, that's the leaner cuts of meat. That's not the dark meat chicken with the skin, that's the breast.
Yeah.
That's switching to the sea bass over the farm raised salmon, although a little salmon every once in a while is not a bad thing.
Hmm.
It's going to the filet mignon instead of the New York strip.
Hmm.
It's little moves like that. It's low fat or non-fat cottage cheese or dairy. These things are going to allow you to have larger volumes of food with fewer calories. If we're moving away from the protein side of things, instead of having a fruit juice, eat the fruit.
Right. I think
Seriously.
the biggest thing that I've been doing since we've been working together is the non-fat Greek yogurt with berries, and I use a little bit of non-nutritive sweetener, and I love it. I have it.
Call it what it is, Duce. It's sucralose.
It's sucralose. I was trying to be. I thought that's what you gym bros call it, non-nutritive sweetener.
Non-nutritive sweetener. Yeah. And there's some, I know there are certain controversies over those non-nutritive sweeteners,
It's
but
the
I would,
same thing that makes your Diet Coke sweet, right? I mean,
right. And again, you don't have to use them if you don't want to. And actually, if you're having difficulty losing weight, making food less palatable is another thing you could do. Taking out
I
the
like
seasoning
that
makes
point.
it a lot harder to finish your meal. Plain non-fat yogurt without any non-nutritive sweetener in it is a lot harder to finish than sweet, delicious yogurt.
Right.
Frankly, if you're struggling, that's another thing you could do. Just make your food slightly less delicious.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to go back for another bite. I'm not saying do that right out of the gate, but that's something you could
Yeah.
do.
And that's something that I talked to. So my uncle has struggled with his weight all his life, and he's on a really good path right now. He lost, I think, like 160 pounds over the last year and a few
Wow.
months, and he's. I'm trying to get him to eat more protein, and he's working with a trainer friend of ours, and I'm really excited for him. But when I laid on him the "Don't make your food taste so good," and he thought about it. He didn't like it in the beginning, but after he thought about it, he came back. He's like, "Yeah, that sounds really good. I think I can buy into that."
And again, right, I would also caveat that with um, there are levels that you can take this to,
Hmm.
and sustainability is my favorite level. If you need to lose 100 pounds, but doing what's required to lose that weight causes you to keep yo-yoing back up, but you can sustainably lose 40 pounds, do what's sustainable. That's the biggest thing. It's consistently winning over time with things that you can hold on to. I think that's the biggest one. Because again, going back to the whole GLP-1 agonists issue, you know, everyone's got to be crazy to think that people that are going on those drugs haven't tried dieting before, generally many times, and
Yeah.
many have lost weight and a lot of weight and then put it back on. That's almost everybody. So to say that they're not trying is absolutely ridiculous. Um, and this is the thing that can finally help them win, and stay in the win column. You know, the one thing I would say is that when people use these drugs, the hope that I have, and we work with our clients here in New York, and some abroad, but I know you're not using these, um, the same rules that apply to longevity as far as getting moving, lifting weights, that kind of thing, that still should apply when you're using these. What they do is they turn the dial down on your hunger, so it should make it easier for you to make the good choices that were more difficult before.
Right.
That should be the overarching goal for your best health and your best life is, okay, how do I go from inactive and with a poor diet, right? And maybe not very much muscle in my body, pretty weak, not a very strong heart and lungs. How do I use this tool to help kickstart and then maintain moving into that way of life in a way that's more manageable for me so that I can have more enjoyment of the rest of my life? That would be my main message with those. Ideally.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, is there anything besides the GLP-1s that is coming up, like the future of fitness? Is there anything else you're excited about or interested about, or anything else that people may not be aware of that they can use to help them get started on their program?
So there are a lot of wonderful apps out there, but one of the trends I'm starting to see now, I guess some people are calling it medicine 2.0, but it's more doctors getting interested in prescribing exercise and diet more as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. I know there's a guy I like to follow, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky. Shout out, Spencer. You're amazing. He and his brother, they have their podcast, Docs Who Lift. If you're not listening, listen to those guys. They're fantastic. And they're basically opening up gyms. They're opening up gyms partnered with their own medical practices. And these guys are weight loss specialists, and they are trying to go from just telling people, hey, lift weights and do some exercise while you're managing your weight with drugs and, food interventions, and trying to actually get people to have memberships to work with their exercise physiologists to really enforce those better lifestyle habits so they get the best possible results. So that's the big thing that's coming. Shameless plug. I know I have my little company, the Michaud Method here in New York that you're working with, but my partner and I are working with a place called New York City Performance Lab up on 33rd Street between 5th and 6th if you're in Manhattan, and at nycperformancelab.com if you are just on the internet anywhere. But we're trying to create that type of atmosphere at a gym here with medical supervision in New York City, and a whole lot of other performance testing for people that are just athletes and want to know how strong they are, what their VO2 max is, and a whole bunch of other fun tests and metrics to help them get better training.
I think that's very interesting, and obviously, as not probably as a beginner, but as you get more into it and you want to take things to the next level, that's how I've seen my progression go. I'm more interested in my blood work and my different levels, and trying to I'm putting all this work into it, and so I want to see the result, and I think that's very interesting. Talk to me a little bit about, this is something I've been meaning to ask you, and I just wanted to see your opinion on if it's a hubbub or if there's something to it. So I told you I was going to a new gym, and they have red light therapy there. Oh. So what's the breakdown on red light therapy? If you put it in Chat GPT, it says a lot of good things about it, but is there any actual evidence, or is it a waste of time sitting in the red light getting hot?
So this would probably be a better question for my business partner, Becky, or club owner, Andre, because they go down the rabbit hole on this stuff. Okay. I as far as I know, it won't hurt you. And
that's what I've heard.
It could be nice for your skin. And a while back, my wife got me a red light therapy hat that was supposed to help my hair grow more.
Oh.
And as you can see,
it's coming in nicely.
It's real thick now. We really got it. It's coming in strong. I wish I had more information on it. I just know that there appears to be some evidence that it's good for some things, and the people around me talk about it, then I immediately ignore them and start studying about exercise physiology again. I'm sorry.
I would definitely, and it's funny because I've been thinking about it. I was like, oh God, I hate to hear Dr. Mike's take on this. I'm sure it's
as far as I know, from what I've heard from conversations from people that have an interest in it, I think it could possibly be good for maybe anti-wrinkles. I don't know. But then again, Botox is way better for that if you're just going to go that route, and then just wear sunscreen. As far as I know.
All right. Well, that was my one personal question.
Sorry, I feel like I could have contributed more there, but I got nothing.
What do you feel like is some advice for people if they kind of get started and then they get off track, kind of overcoming obstacles or like getting back on track?
Well, one of the big things I talked about earlier was don't roam alone. Make yourself accountable to other people. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big one. Also,
Good.
if you fall off track, I would say this, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. That's a big problem. Perfectionism, this an all or none attitude. I hear this from people when they come in all the time. It's the worst thing I want to hear. I'm either all in or I'm all out. Well, shoot. I mean, this is a long run you're going on here. You're going to stumble a few times and get tired. So, what I would say is, if you have a program that you're running and you're trying to be perfect with it, it's not going to happen for you. There are going to be setbacks, and that's normal. You got a long time here. It's probably going to be many decades, ideally.
Right.
So, don't beat yourself up. My favorite is, if you're going to beat yourself up, put down the bat and pick up a feather, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is that sometimes life gets very busy, and just because you can't do all the fitness things and diet-related things that you might have become accustomed to, just because you can't do them all doesn't mean you can't do a pared back version of that. There's a real
Mm-hmm.
thing called maintenance,
Yeah.
right? We're not always cutting and we're not always bulking,
Mm-hmm.
just can you toe the line and just try and stay where you are for a while until high periods of stress and work and whatever is holding you back passes,
Maintenance or hanging on for dear life, as I like to
or
call
hanging on for dear life.
it.
And if you backslide a little bit, just gently course correct. I think the big thing is this: course correcting sooner than later before things get
Mm-hmm.
really out of hand is very useful. This is why we talked about, I have our clients do daily weighing in.
Yeah.
And when it comes to managing weight, for better or worse, the best thing we have right now is actually just daily weigh-ins.
Yeah.
Because if you are off track, you'll see that trend start early. And within a couple weeks, you'll say, oh gosh, yeah, I really am trending up here. And it'll just make you more aware of it. So you don't have to wait until you're up several pant sizes. Or, if you're like me at the gym all the time, I'm just wearing things that stretch. So I could gain 15 pounds and not know it based on my pants. Then I put on a pair of jeans and it's like, oh, baby, we've let things get off course. So daily weighing in is a good one. But making yourself accountable to other people is very helpful. And paring back when it's too much instead of just quitting,
Yeah.
right? And if you do have a major setback and you really do have to take time off, that's not you being a failure or a bad person. Just gently pick yourself up. Maybe you can't start back where you were before, but remember when you started, you were at a certain level. Just start back at that level and slowly start building up. Again, we're not all trying to go out for the Olympics here. We're just trying to win at the game of enjoying our lives and feeling healthy. And that can be accomplished without an Olympic level effort.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
such good advice, I feel. And it's something that I have to tell myself all the time is, things didn't go perfect this week, but I'm still in a better place than I was at this time last year. And I just have to cut myself some slack sometimes.
Yeah.
But
And also when we say, I just do your best, always do your best.
hmm
Everyone's got to know this in their hearts. Your best varies on the day.
hmm yeah,
Maybe your best today wasn't making it to the gym. It was just getting in some walking. Or your best today was, man, you know what? I didn't want to have two slices of pizza and a beer, but I was just out with my friends and I did. And I feel really guilty about that. For one, that sounds delicious. Enjoy. But
hmm
for another, just then don't go home and have an entire pizza and make it worse. Just
yeah,
you can just let it be what it is and wake up the next day and say, oh, okay, well that wasn't what I was planning. Let's try and do a little better today. That's
yeah,
it. Because when you beat yourself up, then you really fall off the wagon. I think that's the biggest one.
yeah.
Do it, but easy does it.
Yeah, I can fall off the wagon from being happy about my progress or
Yeah.
the opposite. Like, I'm doing bad, so I might as well get, even worse. And it's a struggle for me. Like I said, I think a lot of our relationship in the past year has been a lot of focused on my mental focus around everything, and it's been very helpful to me, and I
But
appreciate that for
what
sure.
I will say is that even when you've fallen off, because you've been self-monitoring, those
Hmm.
periods have been very brief. You
Right,
haven't ballooned back up to several hundred pounds. You've ballooned up 10 pounds.
right, yeah,
And then even in that time, you were generally still active and lifting weights when you could,
yeah,
so it wasn't like any kind of giant misstep. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's just, oh, okay, I've been off the beam for a little while here, or maybe it's been a tough month or a tough couple months, but by monitoring yourself, things never really got super out of hand.
right. Which wasn't the case for me in years past, so I'm excited
Yeah.
about this year going into it and having that more focused, even though things haven't been perfect, but we're leaning towards more better than not better, so that's good.
Yeah. But again, thinking about perfect, you've got kids, you've got a wife, you've got in-laws, you've got a business.
Multiple businesses.
You've got a highly successful, internationally known podcast that
That's
talks about
right.
barbecue.
There's so many people listening right now. It's
The
unreal.
pressure is on,
Yeah.
so I think you're
Yeah.
doing very well.
Any closing thoughts on how people should take a look at this year going into, the holidays? Everyone's going to have a great time. New Year's Eve is going to come, and then it's January 1st, and everyone's going to the gym. Is there any other, one or two tips or tricks that you think people should really focus on?
I think that if you've never lifted weights before, I think it's very advisable to get professional help. It's pretty technical. Um, yeah, I'm not going to recommend me, but just
I'll
anyone, that's
recommend
still,
you.
you could recommend me. But I guess what I
Yeah.
would say is a lot of people look at the expense of that and they say that that's too much. It's an investment in your health and your well-being. So I would just say at least get a few lessons if you could, or even go to your gym and snake them into giving you one of those free sessions that's like supposed to be
Right.
an assessment where they try to sell you, but just like learn some technique, just at least do something like that. That's very
Absolutely.
useful.
I think that's a great idea because you can get listen and for everybody. Ian and I have met in person once or twice, just once, right?
It's just once when I
And we
visited
went to
Chicago.
the
Yeah.
yeah, we worked out one time at the gym, and now I've had a couple training sessions before that, but I've gained so much just out of that one session, 1 hour with Ian and him focusing on like this is how you feel your lats, this is how you feel your hamstrings, and it was 1 hour, and I took away so much from that, and you could get probably not everybody's at Ian's level, but at those gyms where you sign up for a year program, we'll give you a free personal training. Take advantage of that because you can
Yeah.
gain a lot of information just from one session with somebody.
Also, another thing, and this is, we all have our headphones on all the time at the gym now. When I grew up, we didn't have that, not at my
Right.
gym.
Hmm.
Look at someone, generally the big angry looking guy who's super jacked, who looks like he should be lifting heavier weights than he is, who's
Hmm.
kind of taking his time and taking it slow. Like if you're trying to put muscle on, go make friends with him. He's probably a sweet guy. It's just the way he gets rid of his stress. Like
Yeah.
and chat him up. I mean, success leaves clues. If you see someone throwing the weights around at high speed with what appears to be kind of loosey-goosey technique, maybe give them the old squint eye, maybe avoid that one.
Hmm.
And then the other one is this. When it comes to cardio training, this is a big one. If you've been doing none, don't go out there and start doing a HIIT class all of a sudden. You might give yourself cardiac arrest. Start slow. Look up online a walk to jog program. If your knees hurt, maybe it's an elliptical, maybe it's biking, maybe it's swimming.
Right.
But ease into it, especially if you're older, especially if you have any issues with high blood pressure, any kind of congenital heart defect. But don't go from the couch to a sprint.
Hmm.
Ease your way into it, ease your way into longer mileage, ease your way into higher levels of intensity. Give yourself time. Don't give yourself a sprained ankle, a busted knee, or a heart attack. Ease into it. It's good. You should do it, but ease into it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, this has been really good. very good information. If the listeners want to find out more about you or your company, where can they go?
They can go to the MichaudMethod.com. And if they want to come in and get any kind of performance testing, body composition testing, we have nycperformancelab.com. And my partner Becky and I are building out their training and nutrition program there. And we'd be excited to come and have you in the lab and poke and prod you and then tell you what you're supposed to do about it. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. And appreciate our relationship, and you've been very helpful to me over the past year. So thank you so much for doing this and for everything else you've done for me.
Duce, it was a pleasure. And now that we're wrapping up, we can actually go and do what you paid me for afterwards.
Okay. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. All right, Ian. Well, you have a great day. Thank you so much.
You as well, Duce. Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.